Okay, so I'm on with Nancy from Canada today, and we're discussing an EMF wireless situation. I'm going to let her tell you, kind of set it up and tell you her circumstances. And she told me this story a number of weeks ago, maybe a month ago, and I happen to be taking a EMF training course right now that involves a fantastic guy. His name's Michael Newart. He's, in my opinion, if not the top expert in the world, certainly the top expert, in my opinion, in the United States on dealing with all kinds of electrical issues, electrosensitivity issues, like extremely low frequency issues, and certainly wireless issues. But he's an electrical engineer. He's an electrical contractor, electrician. He's got 30 years of experience working with people with electro hypersensitivity. His website is emfcenter.com, and you can look him up, learn more about his course, the very course that I'm taking, which I highly recommend. And the information that we're going to talk about today will largely be due to training. My ability to even address Nancy's question will be due largely to the training from Michael Newart. So anyway, Nancy, share your story and what it is that even prompted me to do any research on this subject. So.
Okay. I live in a rural area. It's not remote, but it's a rural area, and the internet service available here is very poor. It's line of sight, and we happen to be on the very edge of that range. So there's a couple different companies that offer that, but we just don't have fast service. So the government's put money in, and now one major communications company has put fiber optic lines in, but what I'm told is their router in the house is wireless, and that's the only option. That's it. I don't have a choice. I have to have a wireless router. And now with the company we have, it's our own router. I have the wireless completely turned off. It comes into the house it's wired into the house, and I have the wireless turned off on the router. But this new company, in order to get fast internet, they tell me, no, the router's wireless, and that's it. That's the only choice I have if I have their service. So
what's the speed that you're getting with I guess I'm curious how you're even able to do a Zoom call with me. Do you have it on just the regular setting right now, or did you have to flip it into a wireless mode?
No, it's regular setting. I get 5 megabytes download speed and 1 megabyte up. So sometimes a Zoom call, if I turn off my video, then I can receive, but the sending is slow. And I mean, this is daytime, and that's fine. Now, if we were doing this at 7 o'clock at night, chances are it wouldn't work. It'd be too slow. Because too much traffic, I guess.
Yeah, too much traffic on the line. So I guess one of the things that I've learned over recently, and I think I told the story at a previous seminar about this little cottage that I'm buying in Ireland, and I had to do all this research. There's no broadband in the area, and I had to do all this research, and was actually told that no one could provide me with internet service. But I continued to persist, and I finally ended up talking to this guy at this company called Air. Now, I had EIR, and I had talked to this same company 2 other times and been told, no, we can't supply you with internet. We can't supply you with broadband. We can't. And they're equating broadband and internet interchangeably as if there's no difference. So by the time I talked to the third guy, because I just can't believe it. I just can't believe it. I know that there are telephone wires running into the house. I know that because I have drone photos of this property, and I can see this telephone pole with cable, with telephone right out there. I called the local post office. Now, again, this is rural Ireland. It's probably far more rural than where you're even living. And but the postmaster always knows everything in these little villages. And I said, okay, this, I'm buying this house. Here's the gal who lived there. She recently died. Did she have a telephone? And the gal said, oh yeah, that's Nancy. Her name, interestingly, was Nancy too.
Mhm.
And she said, oh yeah, she had a telephone. I'm sure she had a telephone. I said, okay, great. I called Air back. I said, who would supply that telephone service? And the postmaster said, Aircom would supply it. I said, okay. I call Air back and I said, okay, I'm a little confused. I'm being told that I can't get internet service at this property, but yet there are telephone lines. Do you not supply DSL? Has DSL just gone by the wayside? And the guy said, oh no, we can supply DSL. And I said, really? He said, yeah, no problem. And I said, well, what kind of speed would I get with DSL? And he said, at that location, you'd get probably 25. Now you were saying 5, you'd get probably 25 megabits per second. Now, just to let everybody who's watching this know that, first of all, Nancy's getting 5 megabits per second. Okay. Now she may be getting a little bit faster speed in the day like this when there's no traffic. It's possible that your speed, that they told you that really low speed, or that you, when you did, have you ever tested the daytime?
Yeah,
speed?
sometimes we see 6, 7,
But it's still
I've seen
really,
8.
it's
Yeah.
still
Mhm,
really
mhm,
incredibly
mhm,
low, right?
mhm,
Okay.
mhm.
But so here Nancy and I are, she's in Canada, I'm in Arizona. Here we're doing a Zoom call. Her picture is perfectly clear, voice quality is perfectly clear. We're doing all this on her end. She's doing this with upside, let's give it the benefit of the doubt, 10 megabits per second. Let's just say you're having a boomer
Mhm,
day.
mhm.
I am using a faster internet service, but back to this cottage story, the guy tells me they can give me 25 megabits per second. I'll be able to get that kind of speed. So I thought, okay, well, thanks very much. I'm just happy that I can get that. I'll do a little more research. So I go online, I do all this research. So for 25 megabits per second, you can pick up emails, you can surf the internet as much as you would like. You can even watch Netflix movies or Amazon movies, with one person on
Mhm.
one device. That's enough speed to do all of that I'm just describing. So I think people are really being brainwashed into the general public, into the kind of massive speeds they need to do pretty much what everybody needs to do every day. Now, admittedly, there are households where you've got kids that are doing gaming, and you might have 3 children that are doing gaming and they're downloading, they're watching all kinds of streaming video things. You might have multiple devices going on at the same time. That's a little bit different story. That you're probably going to need maybe 100 megabits per second. But most people are, let's just, maybe we won't even say most people because I haven't done the research, but there's a huge number of people out there that all they really need to do is surf the internet, do their emails, visit their Facebook, their whatever, their Twitter, blah, 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 and periodically stream a video. This is what we're talking about in regards to what we would classify as, oh yeah, that handles all my needs. So this whole thing with Nancy really perked my interest, hearing her story, which was at a seminar that we did about a month ago. And the reason I was very interested in what she had to say is that, again, it's this, I find it hard to believe there are no options. There's got to be options. I think in options, there's got to be options. And on top of everything else, I was very excited because I had learned that fiber optic internet was on the agenda to be installed as an infrastructure for the Sedona internet service. And I thought, this is just fantastic because fiber optic is extremely fast, extremely safe. And it's just incredible, safe from a security, from a data stealing standpoint, safe from an EMF standpoint, provided you're not in Nancy's situation where somebody's going to say, you've got to use our converter in your house. And that's a wireless, and these are called gateways. That's what Michael Newark calls them. And but they're like a modem or a router, but it's a gateway from one service into your home. And her company is saying, you got to use our gateway, and it's wireless, and you don't have any options. Now, she did a little more research and a little more questioning with them, and they said, let me back up. This is happening more and more, according to Michael. He said that it's not just say fiber optic, and this would not necessarily be standard with all fiber optic installations on top of everything else, is that there will be fiber optic installations out there where you can use equipment inside the house, because the fiber optic signal is a light pulse through these glass little miniature wires, and there's nothing wireless about it. It's not radio frequency transferring like that. It's light pulses with the data transferring on light. It's when it gets to that gateway that everything begins happening in the home. So if you've got a non-wireless situation there, then you're not going to have any trouble. You hook in your Ethernet cable, you plug the Ethernet cable into your computers. Today, you can even get adapters. You can plug the Ethernet cable. You can use the Ethernet cable, which is totally non-wireless, to operate smartphones, to operate, any kind of tablet. It's really quite amazing how many adaptive type technologies are out there now. But anyway, I was very surprised about we can't do anything about it other than, and I was concerned because I know fiber optics coming to my area, and I thought, wow, I need to meet with the city and I need to tell them about this, that if they want to really do it at the best level, they need to insist with whoever they contract with for the fiber optics that people can have non-wireless routers. Otherwise, it totally defeats, not that their main reason is for fiber optics is to keep people safe. They're just starting to get educated on safe from a health standpoint. They're just starting to get educated on that topic. But one day it's going to be to keep people safe. And if they put in an infrastructure where you can't even use non-wired equipment, now everybody is in worse shape because they've got to use wireless in their house. Now, Nancy pursued this a little bit further, and she says, well, isn't there any way to make this non-wireless? And you were told what?
Well, if they turned it off, it would be permanently turned off, and it would never be, occasionally a guest will come and we'll turn on the wireless for a couple hours for them or whatever. And so, I mean, the one tech said we can probably turn it completely off.
But you had concerns about the truth of that because
an EMF expert, I would consider her an expert, a professor at a university here in Ontario. She was told, yes, the wireless is turned off. But of course, she has testing equipment and tested it, and no, it isn't. She went to the next level of tech and they said, okay, no, now we've turned it off. Again, she tested, said, no, it isn't off. She went to another level of tech support and like the top level, and finally she got it turned off.
Okay.
So they said it was off, it wasn't off, but of course with testing equipment you can tell.
Yes. And this, by the way, was Magda Havas, who is a well-known researcher. And so her telling that story is kind of interesting. So Nancy basically has doubts that they'll really be able to turn it off. And Michael Newart says that, number one, he is running into this problem more and more with and it's not limited at all to fiber optics. It's cable companies, DSL, where it's running over the phone lines. It's really all about, very much about that gateway situation. And more companies are providing equipment that is wireless equipment, and you can't do anything about it. But in fact, you possibly can do. I'm going to share with you what you can do about it, because there are solutions. And the first step is you always want to do supplementary research to see, is it true that with this particular communications company that, and we don't want to get ourselves in hot water, so we're not even going to mention their name, but this particular communication that Nancy's dealing with, is it true that you can't use any other kind of gateway equipment with their line of sight wireless input into the house. So line of sight wireless input is you've got a receiver on your house, usually on the roof or whatever. You got a big, cellular cell tower somewhere in the distance that's broadcasting all kinds of stuff. And you've got your little antenna. It needs to be able to connect with that antenna. And then from there, it becomes wired and it runs into your house. And I've had this kind of service before where they turned it off successfully and they gave me a non-wired, I said, I need no wireless signals in my house. And they did exactly what Nancy asked them. They permanently turned it off for me. And it was accurate. It was a fix. So we know that there are people that this actually works for, just turning off having the company. But then there's people like Magda Havas, who's telling the story that it didn't work for, and blah, 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 blah. And Michael says that it is a common thing for him to run into situations where people have had the telecommunications company turn off the wireless setting in their modem router, whatever it is they've got. Again, Michael calls this a gateway, and that it doesn't take, just like the story you're telling, or it takes, and a month later, some kind of reprogramming happens within their company, and the wireless reboots. So rule number one, and this is in dealing with any kind of electromagnetic stuff, if you care about your health, you need to invest in a few meters, electronic meters that can actually tell you what's going on in your own house. Otherwise, you are blind. You're depending on the word of other people, or hopefully getting symptoms that are bad enough if something comes on that you would investigate. But you need to have a basic radio frequency meter. And there's all kinds of other subjects like, your wiring issues in your house. You should have that kind of meter too. But a basic EMF meter that could measure this type of thing. Starting point would be the Acousticom 2, which you can get for it's a decent meter. You can get it for now these days under $200 usually. The meter I use is a meter called Safe and Sound Pro. That meter you can usually get it on sale for around $400, and it's just an exceptional meter. These are easy to use, easy to read, easy to understand. You'll be able to test accurately your home for what's going on, how much background radiation you have from neighbors, from nearby cellular towers, all that type of thing. Where's the best place to sleep, blah, blah, blah. You need to have meters, bottom line. Second thing is, so you can test this kind of stuff. Second thing is getting second opinions. Michael stressed, and I revert to this Ireland story. How many tech people did I talk to? 3 tech people that the first 2 said, oh no, we can't supply you with internet. They weren't even registering. They had to know about DSL, but they weren't even registering at this point because that is so seldom talked about anymore that they even could provide me with internet service. Even though when I asked a very direct question to guy number 3, the answer was, oh yeah, we can give you DSL. And I'd get a connection where I can do emails and stuff like that. I'd be able to go into the internet, do internet searches. Oh yeah. I said, okay, well, this is internet service, blah, 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 blah. So the second thing is check not only with the company itself, press them, which you did, is there any way that I can get around this? And the answer was, well, we could permanently turn it off. And the suggestion would be for you that if you did want to try this new service, always remembering you can always go back to the old service. It's going to cost you a little bit to do all this, but you can always do it, right? Hopefully that's not a smartphone.
No, sorry.
Hopefully that's a wired device. Okay. Then it kind of defeats the purpose. And I might end with a quick little story on that. Having recently purchased a smartphone for travel, I'll try to remind me, Nancy, if I forget, to tell you the funny story about that. But anyway, the long and the short of it is you could give this a try. And the first approach would be go ahead and take them up on their offer of turning off permanently the wireless. Now, if you still want for guests or whatever, a wireless connection down the road, then my recommendation would be is you get a JRS router, an eco Wi-Fi router. And you can find this online. And these are routers that work with wired systems. In fact, you have to get a wired system initially. You plug this router into the wired system, and then you can program it however you want. There's a little, I got one that's got a little button on, I bought the model, it's got a little button on the back. If I ever did want to have wireless in my house, you just press this little button in the back. It's easy peasy, just like that. But it basically will provide a crystal clear, wonderful Ethernet connection for you. And if you click the little button on the back, should you ever want wireless for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever, you push the little button on the back and it'll turn on to wireless. You press the button again, it turns it off. The beauty of the JRS router is that it has been engineered so that when the wireless is on, and I am not recommending wireless for anyone. However, in those occasions where you feel it's important, the advantage of the JRS router is A, you can do it and keep it very easily and keep an Ethernet connection the rest of the time. And B, when you do turn it on, they've engineered it so the pulse rate of the radiation is significantly lower. And the research over the last 10, 15 years or whatever really shows that it's this kind of pulsed type of signal that's hitting us that may be the most problematic from a standpoint of health concerns. So they've also got controls within the software for this, and it's actually very, very easy. When you set it up, you just go onto your computer and you set it up. But you can turn down the power levels that are emitting in wireless mode to the lowest possible levels. Now, most people don't realize that the routers they get from these companies that are supplying the internet service, especially with the wireless devices and the wireless routers, very often the power levels, if not most often, the power levels for that transmission are jacked up quite a bit, and you don't need that much power. I'm currently not using, I have one of these routers, these special JRS eco Wi-Fi routers, and I'm not using it because I don't need it at all. I use strictly Ethernet in my house. I don't have the need for wireless service. And so I just have my internet coming right into a modem that's a non-wireless modem, etc. But when I was using it, I did these tests, and at the very lowest possible level you could damp it down to, I could still sit out on my patio and get a very strong signal out on the patio, clear the other way. So these are the beauties of this eco Wi-Fi router, and you can learn more about that online. So, but backing up to Nancy's situation, number one, if you want to give this company a try, do it and just have them turn it off permanently. If you do want to have periodic wireless, get yourself this kind of router that I'm talking about, where you can completely control. Now, it sounds like you're doing that now. What do you have to do now to turn on wireless?
We actually sign in to the router, like through our, I guess it's LAN, the
Okay.
internal. You sign in and you can control it from there.
So you may even be able to use, your if you could get a wired connection from these guys, you may be able to connect that router right to their setup. And you can ask them if you could do that. And then you could maybe continue to use your exact same router and go in like you've been doing all along. But do know that there's this eco Wi-Fi thing. It's brilliant technology. It's got the advantage of lowering the pulse rate. It's got the advantage of controlling the power output. And it's got the advantage of press a little button in the back. They have a new model now that I would not personally invest in this myself, but some people might be interested, where if you turn on a wireless device and you want to connect, you want a wireless signal. If you turn on a wireless device, it will automatically cause the router to flip to wireless mode so you can use your device. It's gotten very sophisticated. And then when the device is turned off, it goes back automatically to Ethernet mode. Non-wireless mode. So it's a beautiful piece of beautiful technology. The other thing that you can do is you can program, those of you that people who perhaps for whatever reason really don't have an option for Ethernet. I think there's always a way to figure that out. But if you really don't have another option, in your opinion, the other advantage of this Eco Wi-Fi router is that, like at night, you can force it into at night you can program it so that it will turn off at particular times. Yeah, backing up, that's a little bit confusing. The advantage if you're going to use wireless all the time to this system is what I just said. You can turn down the power, you can turn down the pulse rate, which is very good. If you're going to use Ethernet, the beauty of this is that you can, or you're going to have wireless going all the time, you can actually program this device to turn off at a certain time at night, and then it'll turn back on when you have no need for wireless or anything. You have no need for the service, where it automatically, so you don't have to remember, will turn off the wireless at night, turn it back on in the morning for you. Most important thing is you don't have near distance radiation like this, like your phone's on, like the internet on, the wireless router blasting. That's the other beauty of this. You can actually, many people will forget to turn off their router at night. I'm always saying, if you're going to use wireless, turn off your router at night, turn off your router at night, but people forget to do it. So this just does it for you. You just program it. Okay, back to Nancy's situation. So number one, you could contact the company, say, go ahead and do it. Turn off my set me up, turn off my the thing. Now you're going to have a meter so you can verify, just like Magda Havas did. You have one, okay, that you can verify that there's no wireless signals coming from it. And then, with them right there, well, this isn't working or this is working. If they're right there and it's not working, then you can say this isn't working, and they either get it working or you can have them remove it from your home. No, I don't want the service. You said you could do this. Right. This isn't happening. I don't want the thing. Now you're still going to, even if they succeed, you're going to have to periodically check that no wireless has flipped on, because of sometimes that does happen. So once a month or whatever, you might just want to check that there's no weird wireless broadcast. I do that with my wired connection, just in case there's something I don't understand. And something is now coming over, something has happened with my little modem and they've managed to get a wireless signal through it. Blah, 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 blah. So that would be choice number one. Choice number two is amusing, but it would work. And that is, you take and this would be, because there are people out there that may not be able to even get the company to agree to turn off the wireless setting. So if you wanted that kind of service, then, okay, so now you're dealing with a wireless router that you really cannot turn off the setting, not unless you're probably some kind of fancy electrical engineer. And even then, you probably couldn't do it, or it would be difficult. So here's what you do. This is what Michael and his business partner Satya do, and all the customers that they deal with. These are electrically sensitive people, by the way, that they're dealing with. So they take the gateway, the gateway, which I think is equivalent to like a router, and all these gateways, and they say they've never seen one that doesn't have an Ethernet connection. They will have ports on this gateway for things that have to have wires or have to have an Ethernet connection. And so but they say they've seen them where they don't have like a phone port. They've seen them where they don't have like a satellite TV port or television port, but they said both of them have never seen one of these gateways, wireless gateways, that doesn't have an Ethernet port. So what you do is you go ahead and you plug in an Ethernet connection, an Ethernet cable to the device. Then you take the device, the wireless device, and you wrap it a few times with window screen, aluminum window screening. And you're going to create what Satya calls a router burrito. You're going to fold up. You're going to take a wire. You're going to seal up the ends, and then you're going to fold over the ends. There can't be leakage on this. So you got to get full bore. He usually wraps the router like 3 times in aluminum window screen. Aluminum window screen is a very cheap and amazingly effective way to mitigate radio frequency radiation. It's pretty profound. So for example, if you've got a lot of neighborhood Wi-Fi signals, you've got a lot of, you're getting signals from a cellular tower. I've got now 4 cellular towers less than a quarter of a mile away from where I live, and up on this mesa. And there are very detectable signals, and there were in my house until I shielded my house. But if you were on a tight budget and you just wanted to damp down stuff a little bit, put aluminum window screens on all your windows and glass doors, because that's going to damp it down to some degree. And there's been all kinds of testing on this. It's very, very interesting. You're still going to have signals in your house, but you're going to get some kind of blockage on that. It's always tricky with radio frequency shielding, because you can still get you can get bounce backs on stuff, but the screen is kind of interesting because it's not solid. So you still get some pass through the signals, and hopefully wouldn't have as much bounce back stuff. But anyway, long and the short of it, they take cheap window screen, wrap it 3 times, get wire, seal the ends, wrap the ends up like a burrito, seal that so that you don't have any blockage. You've got this cable. Now, here's the tricky part. You got to have that cable running out of there, and there's got to be a little hole where it can get out of there. And they said that if that's not really well sealed, that you'd have to do by maybe running the cable through, the end and then out this way, so the hole is actually then shielded by the fold. Michael says it's like a one of those shotgun things. He says the radiation that comes out that little hole, because what's happening, the router is emitting all these radio waves, and they're bouncing all around in that cage that you've made, and they're going to look for any outlets. And if that little outlet is, that you're going to get just rapid fire radiation, very strong, right through that little hole. So you got to do it. And then you position this little thing, this little router burrito, as far away physically from you as possible, because there may be low frequency electric fields that develop associated with the device and the cord that's running into the device. So you don't want it sitting right next to you. You don't want it in your bedroom. Try to just position it away from you. It's not going to be attractive, so you're going to have to figure out a way to conceal it. And you can't cover it up with something solid that's right close to it, because you're going to cause too much heat. You know how if you feel these devices, how they're kind of warm. Well, if you put them in let's say you wrap them in Mylar or something like that, you're going to cause the device to overheat possibly. And you don't want to do that. It could, on a long shot, possibly create a fire. Unlikely, but it possibly could. At the very least, it could be harmful to the device. So you want to make sure that it can breathe. So you would, if you're going to make it attractive and conceal it in some way, put it in something or behind something so that it can still breathe. The beauty of the wired screen is that it's breathable for the radio waves. Okay. So the other idea is using, this is clever, using a metal trash can. And you now, Michael was talking about the bigger trash cans, but he might not just have been thinking. I think you could probably use one of those smaller trash cans that are designed for ashes. I have one, a small metal ash can that I have out by my patio fireplace. You could put the router in there. Now, again, you got to drill a little hole somewhere, or you got to somehow be able to get the Ethernet cable out of there without creating a big hole, because then you're going to have a whole bunch of wireless through there. But you could literally put it outside and run the cable then from the outside to the inside of your house,
Mhm.
point the hole in the opposite direction. Wherever you let the cable come out, wherever you drill the little hole or whatever, let it go out the opposite direction. The radiation should go out that way. But using a metal trash can. Now, the advantage of the metal trash can idea over the router burrito idea is that if you ever wanted to adjust something with the router, if you, who knows what you might want to do in there, you've got this thing all wrapped up. If it's in the trash can, you're simply lifting the lid off the trash can and there's the router. You can deal with it right there. If you need more than one, if they only have one Ethernet port and on the device, like let's say this fiber optic company, they give you the device, they turn off the wireless and it doesn't work, but you still want to give it a try, and you'll do either the burrito thing or the trash can thing. Well, most of these devices are only going to have one. I shouldn't say that. Maybe they only have one Ethernet port. If they only have one Ethernet port, no problem, because you can get those adapters. Here we go again with adapters. Adapt. You should just memorize that word, adapt. There's always adaptations, and there's adapters where you can convert a single, you take and you convert that single connection on the other end of the cable, or possibly even right there at the connection, you can now create four cables. You can get more cables. You can get that signal to go through more directions. So those are the little tidbits if you wanted to do it. Now, Nancy and I had talked previously about this a bit about this situation before I had any of this information that I'm sharing today with her and with anybody else who may be watching this video. And one of my first reactions was, well, have you really checked all the other options? How there's been technology is advancing to, if your goal is higher speed. And then there's always the question, do you really need and want higher speed? Always questioning that. Why are you after higher speed? What is it really? Is it that you want to spend 5 minutes less every time you have your internet session to do internet searches? Are you trying to save 5 minutes? What is it that you want speed for? And some people, they do need higher speed. And some people, yes, the aggravation that I'm experiencing because the internet's just so slow. My movies get cut off, here I am out in the wilderness and, I can't get any movies and blah, blah, blah. And I'm not willing to watch DVDs. I'm thinking of all the things. Now I got a little bit off track. Oh gosh, I totally lost my train of thought. I shouldn't have gone that way. Oh yeah, first examine how much speed you actually need, and then recognize that technology is moving so rapidly that even things like satellite internet, which historically have been just horribly low, have come a long way. And I know I'm getting advertisements. I got an advertisement yesterday from Hughes.net, which is a satellite company. And their advertising speeds, they'll guarantee speeds of 25 megabits per second. Now that's pretty darn good. That's pretty darn good. And SpaceX is coming on to the scene with their satellite system. SpaceX will probably be faster than that. I know there's a lot of concerns about the SpaceX situation, but that service could end up being a pretty good thing, because the power levels are ultra low of the signals, but yet the speeds are going to be very fast because of the positioning of the satellites. And the antennas that they're using are very interesting because they're dish type bowl antennas that have to point up. You have to have a 360-degree view of like the sky, point that way. And but you don't have to put them on your house. You can actually distance them quite a ways from your property and then run a cable from there into the router/gateway. Now, what I don't know about SpaceX is if the routers will be able to be non-wireless, or the whole I know Elon Musk has said on openly in public that he thinks there's no health issue. There's no problem with this wireless stuff. So he's wrong on that. He simply has not taken the time to read the research, the thousands of studies that show clear evidence of harm, but that's okay. Bottom line, they may have designed something for the SpaceX system that can easily go to a wired situation for people who want it. A lot of people want wired internet. They could care less about health issues. They want wired internet because it's more secure from a data passage standpoint. And so that drive to have safer internet, which at this point in time, that's another reason fiber optics is not only the speed is important, but it is so safe from a standpoint of you can't tap into it with, spy type devices and extract data. You just can't do it, at least can't do it easily. So anyway, we'll see what happens. Bottom line, checking these other options and checking them periodically, because the reality is what wasn't a viable option for you a month ago or 6 months ago may have recently become a viable option for you. And maybe even though, like in your case, Nancy, that, yeah, God, it would be so great to have fiber optics if this could be worked out. But man, does this seem like difficult, doesn't it?
Yes.
Does this seem like difficult? I think it would probably be better to stick with your current system. If you could get a faster speed and your current system doesn't seem to be supplying that, if you could find a faster, I think you already told me you did the research on this. No, there's no faster line of sight wireless available. Have you finished the research on the satellite availability?
Yeah, and even people who have TV satellite in this area, the company offers internet satellite, but not here. That across the country, other places get from this company get the satellite internet, but only TV is offered here. They don't offer. So that's 3 companies that offer satellite internet that don't offer it here.
That don't offer it there. Okay. So, but keep on checking on that, because things could change. And again, the SpaceX coming onto the scene and, more competition in that regard, who knows? And then bottom line, you do have options with this fiber optic thing. You can make this work even and have really fast speeds, even if they cannot succeed with turning off permanently that wireless signal. But the first step would be to keep it simple and have them turn off, have them turn off the signal, make it non-wireless, and you know what to do from there, and verify that it's non-wireless, and then just periodically verify that it's non-wireless. There's no need to have a metal trash can or a router burrito or that kind of a setup. But if you really liked, if you again still want to go for higher speeds, you could do those things. They're not that difficult, what I just described. I mean, it's not that difficult. It's not expensive to do what Michael and Satya are doing for their clients, so there are options, and keeping in, I think that one of the back and forth discussions that Nancy and I had in before I was able to get in and ask Michael these questions, is keeping your mind in an options mode. Because if you want something, if you want to achieve any goal, and a goal like making your environment safer from a wireless standpoint, there's always going to be options. There are simply always going to be options. You may need to get creative. You may need to spend a little money, but there's going to be options for you. There's always going to be ways for you to protect yourself. And there you have it. So any questions about anything that I've said today, Nancy?
No, that's great. I have a couple of things I hadn't thought of before, so that's wonderful. And it really boils down to how much is it worth it having higher speeds? And in fact, a big issue is weather. It's very weather dependent. So it would be nice to be able to have internet in a snowstorm.
Yeah,
We're-
that's one of the beauties of
Yeah.
fiber
Mhm.
optics, is that fiber optics is fast, it's secure on many levels. If you can get a non-wireless connection, it's beautiful from a health standpoint. If you can get a non-wireless setup in your house, and it is totally weather independent. And
Okay.
yeah, and
Yep.
so that is a beauty of that. If you know, it is challenging today to be in situations where you don't have any wireless, not wireless, any internet connection, because so much of our information today is delivered that way. And yeah, so I'm headed to a trip to Ireland in about 12 days now, and I'm actually staying in a zone. I'm buying a little cottage there, and the sale is still in the final stages, and so I'm not going to be able to stay at the cottage. But and this is the cottage that I told you about that I can get a DSL connection. And that should be pretty darn secure, even in fierce weather, unless the telephone lines get knocked down. The fiber optics is great because they bury those cables, and whereas the telephone cables are, severe weather could knock down, a telephone pole, and does periodically. But I'm staying in these two holiday homes that are vacation rentals that are within less than 5 minutes from where my cottage is. Neither one of them one of them has no internet service whatsoever. The other one is way up the hill and actually is able to connect with line of sight and does have a Wi-Fi connection, which they're going to allow me to turn off. But, the first one that I'm staying at, I bought this new, I bought a little smartphone for myself. It's an international smartphone, knowing that I'm taking this trip and knowing that I'm going to be in a place where I won't be able to get any kind of connection. And also that I'll just be traveling, blah, 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 blah. And I have, typically I'm in Ireland for fun. Here I'm doing a lot of little tasks, getting ready to acquire this home. And so I've got to be calling people like the real estate agent, my attorney, all this kind of stuff. And so I need to be able to make telephone calls. And so anyway, I bought this little phone that's designed for international stuff. And this is the part that I mentioned before, remind me of this, is, oh my gosh, I turned on that phone to test it here in the United States, and instantly I could feel the radiation level was amazing, at least strong. And usually I have trouble when I'm around any kind of smartphones. I do have a little flip phone that I can turn on, and I do turn on periodically so that I can get those, how it's become the norm to do the double security check where you're changing, you're doing anything and they want to send you a code by your phone. So I got a little flip phone strictly so I could get these codes. So I turn on the phone and I take it out of wireless, and I then press the button on the computer. They send me the code. I get the code. I press airplane mode and I plug in the thing, and we're done with that. So my exposure is like 10 seconds of wireless, which is fine. But that phone's not going to work in Ireland. It doesn't have that. It's a track phone, so it doesn't have service in Ireland. So this new phone, the point is, I don't feel badly at all. I don't feel bad, painful, uncomfortable body symptoms when I turn on that little flip phone. And in fact, I think it's a 3G technology level phone. And in fact, even if it's on for a while, like there's been occasions where I've forgotten to turn it off, and it might be on for 15, 20 minutes, maybe more, before I actually start to feel any symptoms in my body. So it's what I call really low grade impact on me. This other phone I turned on, wow, I could feel it immediately. Just out of curiosity, I got my Safe and Sound Pro meter out, which I really like because it shows you exactly what you're dealing with from a standpoint of the strength of what's going on in your environment. And in my house, one of the measurements that are used on many of the meters out there are this measurement category called microwatts per meter squared, or microwatts per centimeter squared. And it's kind of, you could think of it kind of as the amount of radiation and the strength of it that you've got in a given space as you move around the space in your house. And it's very, very interesting because on other meters, like let's say the Acousticom 2, there is a fancier meter called the acoustimeter that will give you readouts like the Safe and Sound Pro. But I like the Safe and Sound Pro better because I think it's just really super easy to use. But anyway, the long and the short of it is, for the first time ever, when I got that Safe and Sound Pro, I was able to see that, yes, I'm in the green light, meaning the safety zone for someone with electric sensitivity, or for anyone out there. This is the safest zone. This is, you want the radiation under this level. So on the Acousticom 2, it shows up as a green light, and there's a yellow light, a kind of orangish light, and a red light. And I had a lot of green space in my house, but I didn't realize how variable the radiation levels actually were, even though I was still in the green. And I had spaces in my house that were just borderline, 1 beat away from not being in that. And I could tell that and so I could do some things in that zone to make it safer, or I wouldn't spend as much time in that particular zone. So I have this meter out, and just out of curiosity, I was like, man, I can really feel this radiation. And I have done testing all around my house, and I have these big microwave towers up the hill about, a quarter mile from where I am. The radiation levels outside my house are fairly high. They're like, I thought they were fairly high compared to what I live with every day. So they're like 800 to 1,000 microwatts per meter squared around my house. I live in an environment that is under 3 microwatts per meter squared. So it's very clean. So you walk outside and it's much fiercer. And I thought, oh, it is so dangerous out there. Oh, it is so I don't like my cats being out there so much. It's so dangerous out there. And again, the radiation levels vary from, like, let's say 300 microwatts per meter squared, because it'll bounce up and down. Upwards to the highest I've seen is about, I'm exaggerating when I say 1,000, is probably the highest I've seen is around 900 and something microwatts per meter squared. And I'm thinking, this is absolutely terrible, right? So I take my meter and I turn on this new phone that I've got. And the radiation from this phone is between 175, it varies a little bit, 175,000 to 250,000 microwatts per meter squared. So my message to you today as we end this program is that, yeah, all this aerial, the wireless transmissions from our devices, if you're right next to that device, you're never going to get a reading like that. You're not going to get a reading like this, I don't think. And you're not going to be sitting on your router anyway. You're going to get a much lower reading than 250,000 microwatts per meter squared. And it really brought home to me, I really feel smartphones when I'm out and about and I'm standing next to someone. I know they've got their phone on in their pocket because I can feel it, or in their purse, I can feel it. But I never actually measured that because I don't have my own smartphone. And now I do. And I went, oh my gosh, what everybody really needs to be paying attention to are those smartphones. The Environmental Health Trust, which is the leading organization really in the world on the health, staying on top of the health research, lobbying, and with the governments, with the FCC to try to get the standards changed for everybody. They're really a leading organization on the planet, and they really put a lot of emphasis on smartphones. And now I see why, because, oh my gosh, the radiation levels are just incredible compared to what kind of ambient radiation we're typically dealing with in our environments. So make sure you're turning off your smartphones at night, that you don't have those phones on before you go to bed, when you're not using them, when you're not needing to access the internet. And remember that you don't need to access the internet to make a telephone call. You've got cellular service, unless you're using something like Skype, WeChat, whatever. You don't need to be having, well, the cellular service would be what am I saying? Never mind. You'd have the wireless signal. Erase what I just said. Never mind, never mind, never mind. But when you don't need to be making a call, when you don't need to be using the internet, it is a click of the button, just like I do when I get those codes: airplane mode off, airplane mode on, airplane mode off, airplane mode on. And remembering that to check to make sure that when you do airplane mode on, that is turning off the Wi-Fi setting, because most phones today have a special, they'll have a separate Wi-Fi setting and a Bluetooth setting. And sometimes those need to be turned off separately. So make sure those are off. They automatically go off when you press airplane mode. And if they don't, then every time you want to have a wireless free immediate environment, you may need to turn on airplane mode, turn off Wi-Fi, turn off Bluetooth. And that should be a very clean situation with your phone. And radiation free or almost radiation free. Most people, I hope to heck you're not on the internet, even I hope to heck you're not on the internet more than a couple hours a day. And that seems extreme when you think we only have how many waking hours? How many waking hours do we have during a day? 24 minus 8, we got 16 hours. And let's say 2 hours. I've read articles where it says that some people, especially a lot of the younger kids and stuff, are on the internet. They're on their devices like 6-10 hours a day. This is a huge amount of, not only is it a total waste of the mind, it's a total, the time that you're spending doing that is just incredible, but the radiation exposure is extreme. And that's just too much. That's too much. It's one thing, 30 seconds here, or even an hour here, an hour there. That's one thing, 2, 3, 4, 10 hours a day. This is simply too much. And especially with your smartphones. So keep those in airplane mode, keep the wireless off when you don't need to use this stuff, downplay the amount of time that you're spending on these devices, and then try to do what Nancy's doing, and that's get into a situation where you're in background radiation in your house from your own stuff. Yes, you've got neighbors that have got Wi-Fi that's going to, the signals are going to get into your house unless you've got some kind of shielding. It's going to get into your house. But those signals are going to be very weak compared to your own stuff. The most dangerous situation typically is your own stuff, your router. I just pressed something here. I don't know what I did. Can you see, do you see something showing on your screen?
No, nothing's showing.
Oh, okay, great. All right. Anyway, the stuff closest to you is the stuff that typically, not always, but typically is the most dangerous. So manage that, because, well, you can manage that. So anyway, let me just really quickly look over my notes and see if I've got any other kind of, I mentioned always get a second opinion. And again, I want to clarify on that. It's not just about getting a second opinion from the telecommunications company. It's about doing some research on the internet to see if anyone has themselves done, is anyone out there using a different router, a different gateway than what they were supplied with from from the fiber optic telecom company? Because there could be people that have found workarounds already just with other systems that actually work. And so do a little bit of research on that. That is included in that second opinion comment. Be cautious if you do the wrapping up of the device, the wireless device, that you always use something that's breathable. You might even want to ground that with a grounding cable, which you can buy from many different sources. lessemf.com would be one. But you don't absolutely have to ground this, but if it's going to be anywhere near you, it could create strong electric fields just because the wire mesh will become kind of electrified. And it's not going to be something that's going to shock you or anything like that, but it could create strong, extremely low frequency ELF fields. And that can be as harmful long-term as the radio frequency stuff. So the cheap way is distance it from yourself, then it's not a problem. If it's not right next to you, don't put the burrito, the router burrito right next to your desk that you're sitting at, 10 hours a day, that type of thing. Anything else? No. Okay. Any other questions, Nancy?
No,
Comments?
that's great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And again, I hope this is helpful to everybody who sees this video. With Nancy's permission, we're going to upload this to YouTube so my whole YouTube audience can see this as well. And certainly I'll get it out to all my students. So thanks for the great opportunity to investigate this issue, because again, it really, it brought the flag up for me. Oh my gosh, we've got this fiber. I was so excited about this fiber optic thing coming to Sedona, but wait a second. I need to find out what's the behind the scene. What are the gateways going to look like? What's that all going to be about? Am I going to have to be making, if I want to go that way, am I going to have to be making little burritos? What am I going to have to be doing? Okay. All right. Talk to you later. Thanks, Nancy.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.